What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I got an article I want to read today. It is on the Bleacher Report app from Touchdown Wire, and it is how should the NFL coaches speak with their players about civil rights? So obviously it's pertaining to, like the protests and all the stuff going on in response to George Floyd, and whatnot. Before I get into that, though, I do want to give a little bit of a channel disclaimer. Look, right now, there are things that are far greater and more important and relevant than football, but are also related to football. So that means the coronavirus pandemic that is still going on. That means the racially charged murdering of George Floyd, and then the subsequent protests, etc., that has resulted from that. We're going to be talking about these things. Look, Colin Kaepernick started in the NFL, started the movement with the kneeling, etc., etc. He got fired. He got kicked out of the NFL. His career was ended, and he's been blackballed and blacklisted ever since then. And obviously, what he was speaking out about is just as important as it is then, or today, as it was then. And so, look, for anybody who has a problem with me talking about these things, anybody who gets triggered or, gets their feelings hurt because I decide that I want to speak about the most important and most relevant things, and because I want to give you guys the truth, if that bothers you, well, sad day for you, because that's what I'm going to be talking about. Because again, it is stuff that is bigger than football, but also very much pertains to football. So if you don't like it, sorry. Then you have other channels to go to, of people who are just going to talk about, bullshit that doesn't matter, because there's likely not going to be a 2020 season. As hard as they're trying, there's likely not going to be, both because of the pandemic and because of the kind of civil unrest that is going on within the country as we speak, and is likely to continue. Anyway, let's go ahead and get to this article, though, because this writer, Doug Farrar, does make some interesting points. If they are capable at some point of getting back together, these are going to be conversations and things that need to be taken into consideration, and conversations that need to be had. Anyway, so let's get into this, though. Let's see what he has to say. Whenever NFL coaches are able to return to their practice facilities, host mini camps and training camps, and get ready for the 2020 season, they won't just be dealing with the effects of a pandemic that continues unabated. Meaning it's raging still, and they are still lying about the numbers. The official numbers that are out right now are not what the actual numbers are. There is still plenty of evidence to show that there are a lot of places in this country and around the world of, leadership actively stifling and, hiding the real numbers, so that way people think it's fine to go back out and go to work. But of course, they took months or whatever to respond to the fucking pandemic, but as soon as people start protesting for their lives, they can certainly mobilize the police force, the racist Nazi filled police forces that we have in this country that are nothing more than a Gestapo at this point, and, the military to essentially murder United States citizens. I mean, Donald Trump put out yesterday that he will mobilize the military, and representatives like Tom Cotton say no quarter, which means kill. Do not capture, kill. So they are willing and able and wanting to sick the military on the United States citizens because we decide we want to protest for our lives. Okay, well, who's the aggressors there? Well, anyway, let's get back to this, though. They will also have to deal with the internal effects of a country that has once again been torn apart by police violence against people of color, the death of George Floyd, and the subsequent protests around the country. The feelings will not go away by the time it's time to suit up and run plays. When those players walk back into their locker rooms, put their personal knickknacks back in their lockers, and get ready for practices, they will do so in a world that has been inexorably and irrevocably irrevocably altered, not only by the coronavirus, but also by deadly racism and the reaction to that deadly racism all over the world. Those players will be on edge, as most people will be around the country. They will be walking back into a league that has 7 team owners who donated $1 million to the presidential campaign of Donald Trump, including Stephen Ross, who, held a fundraiser for him, etc., 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 and is I guarantee had, something to do with Kenny Stills not being on the Dolphins anymore. So anybody who wants to say that Stephen Ross is not a racist, no, he is a racist, because the impacts that he's had overall have been to the effect of harming the black community, right? He gets credit for the money he's put into, the various different programs, the cancer run and all these different things. Sure, they do a lot of youth activities in Florida, and he gets credit for that. But that all is completely overshadowed by the bad things that he does. And he's made it quite clear at this point that he's on the side of, Donald Trump and his racist, fascist regime than he is, the actual players or people, etc., etc., etc. And anybody who wants to defend Brian Flores for siding with the racist pig that runs this team, well, sorry, I don't care, because it's not true. He's a sellout piece of shit that decided he wanted to side with, and I don't care what his words are about, these protests and being with him. I don't care if he says that he's with Kenny Stills and Albert Wilson, for example, who still protest to this day. I don't care if he says it. His actions are what's more important. His actions are what tell me what he really thinks and really believes. So if he's going to go and fucking treat Kenny Stills the way he did and then end up trading him, well, no, you're not actually on his fucking side then, and you can go fuck yourself. Anyway, they will be walking back into a league that now admits it erred in the handling of the Colin Kaepernick situation. But of course, that's what the NFL always does. They always, come out after the fact, after the damage has been greatly done. I mean, he's been out of the league for years now. After the damage is done, they'll be like, oh yeah, you know what, sorry, I guess we had that wrong. We have all this money and resources at our disposal. We have the, capability of finding out what the information is and coming to, good, accurate conclusions that are going to result in positive effects, but we choose not to because all we care about is our money. Anyway, they will be walking back in with raw feelings based on their own experiences as people of color. Over 70% of the NFL's player population is of color, while there are only 4 coaches of color for the NFL's 32 teams. And why is that? Because they don't want people of color in positions of power, but if they're going to let them in so they can have the guys that they give a shit, they are going to make sure that the people that they let there are going to be people who end up siding with them. Look, Mike Tomlin, Brian Flores, they are fabulously wealthy black individuals in this country, okay? And they are taken care of, at least to some degree, by the system. Because, look, I mean, the system will undoubtedly, when they see fit, cut ties with those people. Like I said, I believe that in a couple years, after things do not go well with the Dolphins, Brian Flores will be scapegoated without any hesitation by Stephen Ross, because he doesn't actually care about him. Okay? He doesn't care that he's a fucking head coach of color. It's because he thinks that in this moment, he has something that he can offer him. And when he finds out that that's not going to be the case, he's just going to fucking cut bait with him. So it's funny that, you see... and it's not just African Americans, but they will pluck certain Latinos or gay people or trans people or whatever to come speak out against their own community. I'm talking about let me be clear, I'm talking about in national mainstream media. They do this all the time where they will or the establishment, they will pull these figures that will speak out against their own communities just so they can seem like they actually give a shit about those communities, which is ridiculous and absurd to begin with. But anyway, look, let's continue on. And it will be up to those coaches, no matter their color or life experience, to speak to their players in ways that make their players feel that their concerns are at least being heard, if not understood on a molecular level, which is, I mean, it's unfathomable that they will be able to convince all the, I don't know, few thousand players, I don't know how many it is, in the league that they're on their side. Like, it's... Anyway, an important group of prominent quarterbacks, specifically white quarterbacks, have made their own statements regarding the death of George Floyd. As I wrote last week, to hear from Carson Wentz, Joe Burrow, Andy Dalton, and Trevor Lawrence on this matter is important. When those people who play the most important position in the nation's most prominent sport speak up and cannot be dismissed by those who do so because of the color of their skin, it makes an impact. It does, but it doesn't change the current power structure. So it is absolutely helpful to have, you know, people like me and people like them on the side of, you know, minorities and disenfranchised groups. I am proud and happy to fight alongside, you know, my brothers and sisters of color, or, you know, anybody who gets discriminated against in any form or fashion. So we need people like that without question. However, just because they are, you know, in prominent positions, etc., doesn't mean that they have enough impact to where the power structure is going to change or do anything. Okay, they think that they can just fucking run roughshod and get away with it all, and so far they have. So, you know, it's gonna take a lot more than that. Still, we also need to hear from those who came from the communities in question, who have experienced these things and can testify from the front lines. We can no longer tell these players to stick to sports because what they say may make us uncomfortable. San Francisco 49ers cornerback Richard Sherman put his feelings very succinctly on social media. When will the response be justice? Sherman asked in a series of Sunday tweets. Racism has been around for forever, and too many excuses have been made for it. If you are sitting by watching it and judging the reaction, you are part of the problem with what is going on because you allow yourself to overlook the cause. Unarmed and black is not a crime and should not be treated as such. I will not argue or engage in discussion with individuals who cannot understand that basic premise. Basic fairness and justice is all that has been asked for, and it has not been given. Nor do they ever intend to give it. In fact, they intend to just murder us instead. They intend to sick the military on us and just have them kill us if we decide to fucking resist. Additionally, that part where he says, you know, when will the response be justice? Racism has been around forever. Absolutely. And I ask this, right? So people will say that, oh, you know, there have been examples of how peaceful protests have worked in the past. Just look at Martin Luther King. Okay, absolutely. I will look at that. Let's see. He got rewarded for his peaceful efforts by being assassinated. So on a personal level, that didn't work out very well for him. Unfortunately, and I'm pretty sure if he was around now, he'd be like, man, we probably should have, as much as it would have sucked, we probably should have been a little bit more aggressive, because they are absolutely willing to not only be aggressive, but they're willing to be brutal toward us. So not just willing, but wanting. They desire it. They enjoy it. They love it. So anyway, you know, but aside from that, you say, okay, well, but you got to look at the bigger picture. Black people are not in chains anymore. Yeah, but they're just being senselessly slaughtered in the streets. There is still systemic racism throughout all of our institutions. What do you mean? The wealth that an average black person has is a fraction of that of, you know, a white person in the same socioeconomic bracket. Like, are you kidding? Like, it has not even come close to going away. We have not actually systemically, fundamentally, at our roots, changed anything about who we are. So I would very much and do very much argue that we haven't made any kind of fucking progress on civil rights or, you know, black rights, Latino rights, fucking anybody's rights. We have regressed in that. Fascism is in full bloom right now. Okay, whatever. So look, man, I mean, people need, he's right. People need to fucking be pissed and be fucking, fighting for this shit. I'm doing my part, and I'm preparing myself to get even more involved. And everybody, especially because you're not going to have a choice. Look, this affects us all, and we all need to be aware and prepare for this. Anyway, I'm curious, or it's curious the way I'm treated in public when I have a mask on and when I don't. When I wear a mask, I feel the tension. I feel the tension that I have felt since I was a child. I can feel the looks I get of people who assume I'm a threat. But when the mask comes off and suddenly I'm not a threat. My profession nor my education changed the fact that I'm a black man in America, and to that end, I will continue to fight for equality for the people that are treated unjust in the country. And if that offends you or makes you uncomfortable, then maybe we are starting to make progress. Maybe. I haven't quite seen it yet, although the revolution that I hope is materializing in front of us will hopefully accomplish that. But look, man, I personally don't give a fuck if these right-wing fucking hateful, bigoted, racist assholes get triggered by the things that I have to say. They are the enemy. They are the ones that do this and instigate this and started all this to begin with, so they can fuck all the way off. And I'm going to fucking be here to stand with my, brothers and sisters on the left, on the progressive side, and the marginalized communities to fight against this bullshit. To me, such deep and valid concerns with the usual, hey, let's go out there and get 'em, boys, would be to ignore and misuse what has happened in America and what will happen in America. Now is the time to listen and to speak, and in the case of coaches who are entrusted with the careers of these players, it's time to understand and to help whenever and however possible. Dolphins head coach Brian Flores, one of those 4 coaches of color, along with Anthony Lynn of the Chargers, Mike Tomlin of the Steelers, and Ron Rivera of the Redskins. By the way, Anthony Lynn, I'm not very impressed with his statements. I understand his feelings and can empathize with it, but he said that he's scared right now, which I get. But he said that he doesn't know what to do. What do you mean? You are a black person in a prominent position with some degree of power, and you're also wealthy. I think you have quite a bit that you could do, actually. So go out there and fucking do it. Okay, well, whatever. Anyway, let's see. Led the charge last Friday, releasing the following statement. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read his full statement. You guys already know what it is, and you already know how I feel about it. I think he's... look, I mean, am I going to go as far as to say that he doesn't feel that he means those things? Sure, I'm sure he does mean those things. And again, I do not deny at all that he has had the black experience in life. No matter how, no matter how much money he has or, what kind of position of prominence he's in, the white establishment is always going to find him lesser. And so, they will not allow him to rise to the most powerful ranks, right? And whatever. So, I do believe that he still has to be affected by these things. I'm not questioning that at all. The question is then what do you do about it? Do you just simply talk about it? Do you just simply put out the hopes, the prayers, the wishes, and the well wishes? The hopes, the prayers, and the well wishes, excuse me. Do you just put that stuff out there? Is it only rhetoric? Or what about your actions? And I'm sorry, but the one instance that he has that I'm aware of, maybe there are others that can counterbalance it or whatever, but the one instance that I've seen where he was in a position of power, i.e. the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, where he had a situation in which he had to handle a player of color, a person of color, and something that was very much tied to racism and the movement, etc., right? And this whole, protesting against police brutality and for the lives of black folk all around this country and around the world, he made the wrong choice. I mean, there's no other way to say it. There's no sugarcoating it. He made the wrong decision. He decided to side with the racist white male billionaire owner of the team over the player, the guy that he is supposed to be responsible for. Okay, so look, I mean, that's when I lost all respect for Brian Flores as a human being. His football decisions have been terrible since then. So he hasn't really improved his standing in my position, or perspective. But I mean, look, if you guys support him at all, period, that's on you. But he is a sellout, and he is part of the establishment structure in actions to this point. And his words mean absolutely nothing to me if his actions are going to continue to be side with that side. So he can fuck right the fuck off. Just like when it comes to police for me, if they want to march with us and if they want to march on the side of justice, then I am happy to have them with us. But if they want to march on the side of fascist Nazi pigs, well, they got something else coming. Flores' statement resonated with Patriots safety Devin McCourty. Flores worked in the New England organization from 2004 to 2018, starting as a scouting assistant and working his way up to linebackers coach and de facto defensive coordinator. De facto because he wasn't actually the defensive coordinator. Bill Belichick apparently didn't think he was quite ready and only gave him play calling duties. He holds a position that falls right into that category of representing the entire NFL, McCourty said on the Double Coverage podcast he hosts with his brother Jason, who plays cornerback for the Patriots. A position that as players, as people who watch football now, we need more black coaches. We need more black GMs. We need more people in that position. So to see him be outspoken and knowing him personally, he's always been like that, to me was great to see. Okay, great. He's outspoken. I'm outspoken. People hate me for it. But the difference is they also hate me because I've been very clear in my actions that I'm not going to stand up for that shit. Throughout my entire life, I have been fucked over and because I fight battles for other people. Because I can't stand the fucking injustice that is done to other people. So I will jump in to help them and then end up getting hurt myself because of it. But I don't care because the justice is more important. And again, what have his actions said? It's about leading men. It's about men seeing the important things. We don't just come to play football. We're around each other. We mentor each other. We try to pour into each other. So to see him go out there and make it public and say how he felt, I thought was really good. You need a lot more. Not that Flores needed any additional courage to say what he said, but it was worth mentioning that Chris Greer, the Dolphins general manager, is also black. Miami has the only combined coach-GM tandem of color in the league, which is a separate and shameful discussion. And that's true. And look, again, that's not to take away from the credit that they have for having those guys. And it's good that Stephen Ross was, willing to fucking, hire them in those positions. But, again, Stephen Ross also supports Donald Trump, who institutes racist policies that will affect people like that. So, I mean, and that has the much, much greater and more profound impact. As for Lynn, he spoke to NFL.com's Jim Trotter about what he'll say. Anyway, look, I mean, I'm not going to keep going on. There's obviously a bunch more quotes and stuff like that. Look, at the end of the day, if they have a season to get back to, etc., they do have to talk about these things, and they do got to talk about it appropriately, etc. But look, I mean, this is a situation that, unfortunately, because the other side is just so hateful at their core, so disgusting and racist and misogynistic and xenophobic, etc., homophobic, blah, 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 and have such a deep-seated desire to cause pain for other people that our only recourse is going to be to fight back. And so, look, things are going to continue to escalate and get worse. And if there's a season to be had to begin with, they need to be able to handle it appropriately. But it takes way more than rhetoric and pocket change. Okay, so they can't just say good things and give, a few dollars. Like Stephen Ross has given like $2.5 million to the coronavirus pandemic, but that's way not enough. And he's a fucking billionaire. He has more money that, his entire lineage for the next like 5 generations could ever spend. So, I mean, it's absurd. Anyway, like, it takes more than rhetoric and pocket change. You really have to go fucking all in, and unless they exhibit that, unless they show that, and unless that's what they do, and unless their actions speak out, you know, if they're out there protesting and, you know, all of that stuff, if they're, you know, donating their paychecks, you know, those are additional things. Those are ways to really show it, right? Not like donate your whole fucking paycheck, Flores, go for it, right? To coronavirus or to, you know, criminal justice reform and blah, blah, blah. Go ahead. You got to show in a more substantive way that you're really actually fighting and not just sitting on the fucking sidelines being a fucking fake little cheerleader. Anyway, that's what I got for you. I hope you guys appreciate my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And of course, as always, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I'm out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.